Hi, and welcome back to FX PhD Photogrammetry. On this class, we're going to go a little bit further and deeper on different tools we're going to do between reality capture and Maya. So I highly recommend doing your process for the photogrammetry to do different tests. This is very important because you never know how the solver we're going to find the best solution. So when you do some resizement of your bounding box, try to make sure when you change your settings here and you try to rebuild the base mesh, the mesh and the texture, you can do different tests. As soon as you have the best solution you think it is, this is the one you're going to keep. So feel free to do as long as possible, as many as possible tests, just to make sure you get the best of your photogrammetry. So now I'm going to just delete what I don't need. So feel free to delete what you don't need. So I'm going to keep basically this one. You see here was basically my alignment with my 250 images here with my circle. And then I did a quick test and it was not good enough. I want to test something a bit bigger. So I go back to my normal details here. And then I have a better bounding box here. Right, so I try to keep as far as I can where I do have some details, because if you go back here, you see behind this area here, the drone didn't focus. So this is definitely the focus zone where the drone kept the focus. So it's why what is behind is so raw, I didn't keep anything, and I prefer to have a very simple geometry in Maya. So here I'm going to test this one here and then resize slightly my bounding box. So we think sometimes with a lasso we can definitely select an area here and press delete or backspace, but it doesn't work like this. This lasso or any single selection tools, it's mainly just to redefine the bounding box. So if I select, instead of, for instance, clicking on the bounding box on the side and try to readjust manually, what you can do is just to, let's make automatically, manually. Oh, I just lost the clear region. Let's go back here. Let me reopen the project. I think I just lost the view. There we go. Let me select display name. Okay. It's gonna just process everything and reset the perspective. It's not working. So I'm closing it, reopen it quickly, and reopen my project. Texture. So we try to keep as much as possible the texture. So for instance, what you can do is, for instance, based on the point cloud here, you can, for instance, say lasso, and I would like to focus on this area here. So you take your point cloud here and you can set now, select automatically the bounding box. And this will create just a bounding box. So it don't make a huge difference between doing lasso and making sure you can set the region or adjusting the bounding box manually. What I prefer is definitely adjusting manually here, and as we saw on the previous videos, resizing on the top view and make sure we have something as accurate as possible here. So this could help, depends on the cases. So feel free to use the selection tool and then resize the bounded box. So here, let's go back on my view, 3D and perspective here. There we go. So this was the first thing. The second thing is, like sometimes, because here I do have some basements, like a mesh, and I have my texture, I can definitely export this. So now you have like a nice simplified geometry with 1 million. So I did a simplification here, and I put obviously 1 million to make sure we don't have something super heavy, and then unwarp my UVs with different UDIMs as we did before, and finally process the texture. So it's not very takes too long, but probably 5 minutes. So I just kept this and I have my final mesh here. So now we always try to export this with OBJ before. So what I'm gonna do now is I'm gonna export to FBX. So the reason I'm gonna export to FBX and I say yes, it's because I would love to keep my camera here. This is very, very interesting, especially if you want to remodel or use the camera projection in your texture software, your favorite texture software like Mari, for instance. So if you have those camera and the mesh, and each camera has the texture projected, you can reuse exactly this FBX in Mari. So if I export this and say yes, I'm gonna just export JPEG because it's gonna be too heavy. So if you press OK, what's gonna happen here in cache OBJ, now it did export my FBX with reality capture info. We don't need that now. And then I do have all my JPEG, so it's gonna use that as a projection. There we go. So in Maya now, what you have to do, it's simply just to import my FBX. Import. So depends of your machine. It could take a little while because it's gonna import 250 cameras. So the time is gonna take is gonna be a few seconds. So we just need to wait. In the meantime, what you can do as well, it's sometimes when you have no Maya or able to render just to see the results, is to export a render. So you can render a solid frame you selected here. So then you create a 720p HD ready, and you can press render here, and then you can save an image, or you can do just a simple screen grab. What I love to do sometimes is just a video here. So if I press video here, I'm gonna make just a simple video of this. So it's not extremely accurate because you don't have access on the movement. But what you can do, if I go back to my desktop and I check this, oops, it was not very, very accurate. Let's go back here in videos and textures. Let me just make sure we have a preview of this, because maybe I don't have any meshes for some reason. This is very quick. It should take no more than a few seconds. There we go. 13 seconds. There we go. I'm gonna make a quick video here. Yeah, very happy. Exporting the video. So now I have a mesh. So this export will give you like a very random camera just to go through different angle. And the good thing with that, it's through reality capture, you can create a quick videos just to make sure someone can check what you did on the reality capture and the photogrammetry. So if you're not able or don't have time to export everything in Maya, set up everything in Maya and render something, at least you can create in like a minute or two a video. You will see the results, depends of your model, depends of what you need, depends of your expectation. It's probably not exactly what you need, but at least we are able to export a quality check or simple exports just to review or discuss about the model. And it's better than nothing. It's what this export tool or the exporting video tool, it's quite interesting because you can save a little bit of time later. The time this is exporting, yes, we can select obviously QuickTime or sorry, you can select different. No, you cannot select different video format or codec, but at least I give you an export video quickly just to get something out. Just need to wait a few seconds to export this. And this is done. So let's go back here. So you have like almost 100 megabytes. So this is the final result. So you see, depends on compression. It's very interesting because it gives you a very random camera just to explore different angle on your geometry. So of course, if I do have a better result and better camera, sorry, better mesh and texture, that will give you the ability to check your model. So you see, it tried to cover based on the bounding box a very random camera, but at least they give you enough time just as a review the final result. So what I'm gonna do is stop it and make sure we do have a better result. So I'm gonna make a normal mesh. This won't take too long. Again, maybe Maya, it's open now. Fantastic, this is done. So let's open the, oops. Just may have froze. Let's go back to Maya, panel, outliner, and this is what is interesting. So what do you have here? So based on the export, you will see you have basically each camera, and each camera here in Maya have the texture to project, and then obviously the model. So this is quite very, very interesting. So depends on your needs. Now you can adjust whatever you need and then export this in Mari, or straight away import this FBX in Mari to retextures if you want to. I think it's definitely better when you have an assets or hero assets. So when you have like a very accurate model, you can definitely have a default textures based on the camera and repaint the transition for each different camera in Mari. So it's why this was extremely interesting for me to have a look and see how we can export each camera, because for different reasons we can use it for different purposes. So this is how we can export the camera position in from reality capture to Maya or any different softwares. So if I hide every single camera here, in my mesh, I have the camera position, which is represented by a very simple mesh here. There we go. And then each camera is here with the texture assigned to it. What I did export is what I did export only JPEG, because it's going to be extremely heavy at the end if you export some TIFF or any other format. So let's go back to reality capture and wait a few seconds to make sure this is done, the reconstruction, and then I'm gonna export this to, I'm gonna just bake my texture to it. There we go, so this is done. So I do have my 2.1 million of triangle. I'm gonna only simplify, obviously here, simplify to 1 million. And this is extremely quick. That's why reality capture is so efficient with that, because it's extremely fast process. There we go, 1 million, 1 million here, in warp quickly. Same thing, to in-warp this in Maya could take a little while, especially with a density like this. And to in-warp this for the UVs, it could take a little while. So now let's reproject the textures. And hopefully we will have a better results, and then we can create a quick video. And now this is nearly done. Just finishing the process. Perfect. So it's definitely a better result here. So what I'm gonna do, just export a simple video. So 24 FPS, 25 FPS. I'm not gonna change this. Depends on your needs. You can do something different or smaller. I love to keep at least HD, because when it's too small, it's very hard to evaluate or be able to judge properly the model. So I'm gonna just keep that for HD, and that's it. You just need to export. You can export different things, so you can have like a very image sequences, but the idea for me is just to keep MP4, so it's better for our purposes now. But obviously if you need some editings or making of or breakdowns, this is definitely better. So let's gonna do this, export. I'm gonna just override because I'm gonna put 2, just so we can compare, and we should have exactly the same movement, camera movement. So we're just gonna export this now, wait probably a minute, and go back as soon as this is done. Just need like a few seconds, so it took almost 3 minutes. So this is great. So this is now done, and I'm gonna just go back here. There we go. And now we have definitely a much better result. So forgive me about the compression at the beginning, but yeah, now you see it's definitely a very, very interesting result. Of course, it's a little bit weird and hard to read with the black background here, but like you can recognize definitely the quality of the mesh, texture, and accuracy of the photogrammetry. And this is extremely handy, especially if someone don't know Maya or any 3D softwares, depending on the license on your company, but at least you can be able to give something like, or recompress this file on another software, editing software, or free software to compress a video. But now, definitely with this video, I have the final result. And it was much better than the previous one. I think this kind of like movements is dependent on the button box, so we think you have to switch around and do a 360. But yeah, this is very interesting. Now we have our model. What we're gonna do, as every single end of the class, we're gonna just export this model and export the texture. So I'm gonna go back to my normal OBJ. Here, I'm gonna just order period date, Angelos, Angel to Maya. I'm gonna call it 2 here, and I have UDIM, so this is good. I'm selected the right one and export this one. Export texture and color mesh, sorry. Go back in Maya. I'm gonna create a quick scene and import my OBJ. Version 2, this is good, and it's stiff with my UDIMs, so this is great. Import. Just take a few seconds to open and load the model. Brilliant. We do our small rotation, classic, like pretty standard now, because we know how that works. I'm gonna push minus 90, and yeah, happy with that. Create my new material, surface, because we don't need any lighting interaction. New color output, my file, and then select in cache OBJ, my TIFF file. So I do have somewhere my TIFF file. Here we go. So definitely we recognize the swimming pool, the roads, and a bit of the church everywhere here, and houses. So select one. And never forget here to click on UDIM, because as soon as you have more than one file, you have to read the sequence, image sequences, and not only one texture. So it's why you use the UDIM Mari settings here. sRGB, absolutely yes, and that's it. We should be able to see the rest of the road. Converting, and here we go. Now we have our full settings. So basically what I'm gonna do, for instance, if I have to go on the next department, what we can do is definitely to extend a bit the road or to place an element here. So the good news is, if I put like chrome spheres here, I will get the reflection. You will see my model is not perfect, but for a car, if you put a car in the middle here, or if you put any assets, you will get at least the right lighting, intensity, shadow casting, and everything. So that's why it's so interesting to get something so quickly for the layout step or any beginning of the pre-production, because you do get something accurate quickly with that. Obviously here, I'm not in the right size, so never forget to adjust the size here based on 2 control points. So if you know the height of the church, so put 1 constraint, 2 constraint, and then put a distance tool here. So you can definitely define a distance between 2 points, and then it will resize everything in reality capture. Or if you don't have time, or if you forgot, or if you different departments, missing licenses, or any issue, you can definitely adjust everything in Maya just to scale this in a group, and you will get exactly the same result. So thank you very much for these classes.